Good morning. Today we are looking at understanding question types. But before we go into this, a quick reminder of how we get to this point. Remember, we were looking at reading comprehension. That is to say, how we can effectively read a comprehension passage, understand it, and be able to tackle questions on it. So in the previous class, we looked at what reading comprehension is. And if you recall, we said it is the act of making meaning out of printed materials. And then comprehension can also mean to understand. And to understand will also mean to realize the meaning of words or a language. And then we tried to explain the steps involved in reading. Because for us to do that, remember we said we have to look at two vital things, such as comprehensive reading and understanding question types. We said these are the two things that will help us. Having known what reading comprehension is, then we moved into important guides to comprehension passages, which we said there are two things to look at. One is the comprehensive reading, while the other is understanding question types. Okay, so we've looked at comprehensive reading and we said there are three major steps to comprehensive reading, and on four per se. We talked about open-mindedness, the fact that you have to have this mindset that you want to read and understand, bearing it in mind that no comprehension passage is 100% guaranteed that all readers will enjoy it. Nevertheless, exam bodies try to bring up trends that each and every student should be able to be familiar with. And we give example with the coronavirus, which is trending right now. So any exam question that will be coming up in a short while could want to touch coronavirus because it's a noble thing, it's a trend, believing that students would have gotten used to it and find the passage interesting. And we said, nevertheless, there are passages that no matter how the examiners try, some students may not find it interesting because that may not be their area of interest. So, for you to be safe as a reader, we said you have to be open-minded to read all passages with the intention of enjoying them. And then we talked about the key steps, such as the first reading. This is the stage where you just want to read to get the general information on what the passage is talking about. And we said after that, the next thing you want to do is to read through the questions. When you read through the questions, you get the direction, you get a focus of what the examiner wants you to look out for in the passage. So having known the direction or the focus or what is to be looked for or what is to be searched for, now you go into the last stage per se, which is the second reading. Okay? The second reading is where you now read carefully to fish out information. I hope that is clear. So we said finally, as a roundup, you must be intentional about it. You must read with the intention to enjoy what you're reading. Your reading speed will be such that you want to read a story to yourself. So you must be as calm as possible to enjoy the reading, not minding the vocabularies that might be very high for you or the new words. Forget about them, just read. And then there is what we call the contextual clues. Other words in the sentence will help you to understand those new words, so you may not really be bored. Okay, do not bore yourself with too much grammar and all that. And no matter how long the passage is, just relax, enjoy it. Okay, and at the end of the day, you'll find out that it's pretty easy. And at the end of the day, see yourself getting a lot in what you need to do. So today, we'll be looking at understanding question types, because after reading the passage and you must have enjoyed it, you need to also go through the questions and understand what the question wants you to do. And this is a very vital area. You need to really pay attention here. Now, understanding question types. There are different types of questions in SSCE comprehension passages, which you must know. This knowledge will guide your responses to suit the various nature of the questions. All questions will not require same pattern of answers. Did you get that? That all questions will not require same pattern of answers. So, if you have a comprehension passage and you have from alphabet A, B, C up to H, you don't expect each of the questions to look alike. Remember, it's a comprehension passage. The examiner wants to test your ability to comprehend, your ability to understand. So, what the examiner will do is to hit you with questions from all angles. Questions that will require different method of response. Okay, even in the daily class, you don't expect your teacher in the class to ask you same pattern of questions all the time. So sometimes there is a twist. Just like you have the creative writing. In creative writing, you will have the question that talks about you writing a story may be narrative. You have the question that will require expository. You will have the question that will require writing a letter, maybe formal, informal, or semi-formal. You could also have, there are different types. So such is it when you come to the comprehension passage. Examiners will always test your understanding of the passage from different angles. So do not expect that every question you are asked, you are to give your answers in sentences or in just one word or in a phrase or in a group of words that will form a clause or so. These questions will come in different directions. And as they come from different directions, you are expected to tackle them in the form in which they come. So there is no one specific way of answering questions. It is the question that determines how you will approach it. So in this tutorial, you would be coming across different question types and how to respond to them. So, moving on, we said, hence, you must as well comprehend the question as you have done the passage itself to be able to come up with the required responses. Now, one major thing you need to do is to understand what nature of question is this. What is this question saying? How has the question been framed? Okay? So you need to know that when you are asked a question like, what is your name? You should know that it is your name that is specifically asked, not any other information. You have to understand what the question wants, get the precision, get the accuracy. Understanding a question is already halfway into getting the answer. Because if you do not understand the instruction of the question, you will fumble when you get to answer the question. So, in as much as you've read the passage carefully and understood it, you also need to read the question and understand it. So, understanding your question will give you a guide to how you need to answer this question. Okay. Now, these are the following types of questions. Number one is the direct question. We have the inferential questions, we have the rephrasing, as well as the vocabulary questions. This number three comes alike. So these are two in one, they come in this form. Now, number four is the figurative language questions. These figurative language questions are questions that most students tend to find issues with, but then when we get there, you will find them easy. And the least, but not the last but not least rather, is the grammar questions. Okay, For this morning, we'll be looking at the direct questions. Now, how do we understand which ones are direct questions? Now, direct questions are questions you can easily fish out their answers as they are vividly stated in the passage. These ones are the most simplest. They are stated clearly in the passage. You don't even need to stress yourself. Okay? Now, moving on. They will not require critical thinking to be figured out. Did you see that? They will not require critical thinking to be figured out. This means when such questions are asked, you can just go straight into the passage and see where they are. And then you just fish them out and construct your answer. You don't really need to bother, worry your head, trying to crack your brain, trying to extract it from the passage, trying to think, how would you do it? No, they are just there, vividly stated, glaring at you just to pick them out. Okay? It's just like telling you to go into the room and bring out the mattress. The mattress is there. You don't need to look for it. It's just there, pump and plain. Okay? Moving on, we say, nevertheless, locating these answers will require reading carefully to understand what the examiner is looking for. Remember, in as much as these answers are lying there vividly in the passage, and we've said they do not require critical thinking, that doesn't mean you just dabble into it and pick anything out. You have to be careful. Know exactly what you were told to bring. For example, you are told, go into the room and get me the water bottle. Now, when you get to that room and you see the water bottle close to the cup, do not assume that the person who needs that water will need cup to take it. Just bring what you are asked to bring. Don't bring the water bottle alongside with the cup. No. Just bring exactly what you're told to bring. So you need to understand the question. Be sure of the question, then you can fish out the exact thing that is needed. All right. Moving on. You are expected to state your answers for these types of questions directly as they are found in the passage, so long as they do not violate grammatical rules. Okay? So what I mean here is this. When you are asked this question, all you need to do is move into the passage and fish out the answer. Do not change the form in which the answer is stated. You don't change the form. The answer is lying there. All you need to do is pick them. Do not change the wordings. Do not change the words, because those words are its originality. You've been asked a direct question. Give a direct answer as they are lying in that passage. But then we added something to that, saying, so long as they do not violate grammatical rules. For example, you have a passage where the writer says, Mr. Sam's first son, Johnson, is in year 3. Mr. Sam's first son, Johnson, is in year 3. And then the question says, what class is Mr. Sam's first son? It is there in the passage. Mr. Sam's first son, Johnson, is in year 3. Now you have to bring it out by saying, Mr. Sam's first son is in year 3. Now you have taken it exactly the way it is. You may not need to add Johnson or some other things that are there, but just give us the answer directly the way it will suit the grammatical rule, the way it will sound correct. But make sure that you maintain the exact words, because these are direct questions. When we look at examples, you will understand better. Now, note that this does not encourage mindless lifting. Mindless lifting is where you pick the exact sentence where answers are found between a sentence in a paragraph, you find students copying the whole sentence. Okay? There are some cases where the whole sentence could just be the right thing to pick. But in most cases, when you do that, it is called mindless lifting. You just pick both the needed and the unwanted, and then you just drop that from the passage you pick to your answer booklet. That is mindless lifting. So please avoid mindless lifting. Again, when we move on, you will get to see what we mean by that. All right. These are examples of direct questions. Most direct questions come in this form and many more. You will see questions like, what was the main reason for so and so? Now that what is direct. What is the main reason? The main reason will be lying there. Another form of these questions are, give 2 examples. Sometimes we have mentioned 2 examples. Those examples are stated in the book. You just need to go look into them and then fish them out. Other types are, quote a sentence. The sentence is in the passage. Maybe you hear something like, quote a sentence that supports the fact that Johnson hates his father. Now you just need to go to the passage, read through, and pick a particular sentence in that passage that signifies hatred by Johnson to his father. Another example here is, write down 1 word. Or in other cases you hear, write down an expression which shows. Okay? This kind of questions, you have to go to the passage and pick an expression to portray your answer. So we have so many other types, and you will always see them coming in this form, trying to ask you to bring out a direct information. Now this is an example. Now this is an extraction from SSCE past question, specifically June 1997. This is an extract from that passage, and the question beneath it helps us to figure out what direct question looks like. Now, if you read through in SSC 1999, specifically in 1997 in June, you will see that this extraction was taken out from there, and it reads, he would forever stick to his theory of Africans suffering from a curse inflicted on them by the Almighty God for some heinous sins committed centuries ago. Now, a particular question in this year asked, what point of view is the geography master fond of advancing? What point of view is the geography master fond of advancing? Now the question is, what point of view? The point of view is stated in the above paragraph. What point of view? It is now for you to go to that place and find out what is the point of view. Haven't identified, how do I pick them out? How do I pick the point of view out? Okay, give it a thought. What point of view is the geography master fond of advancing? And the passage has said, he would forever stick to his theory of Africans suffering from a curse inflicted on them by the Almighty God for some heinous sins committed centuries. Now you can see that the answer begins from the fact that Africans are suffering from a curse inflicted on them by the Almighty God for some, this is the sentence where it lies. Now picking the whole thing here as a sentence and dropping as your answer is what we call lifting, a mindless one at that. Now let's see sample answers. Now these are answers. Now the first one is an example of a lifted answer. He would forever stick to his theory of Africans suffering from a curse inflicted on them by the Almighty God for some heinous sins committed centuries ago. Of course, the answer lies in this expression that has been lifted, but it is a mindless lifting. Now, what will happen if you do such in an exam? You stand the chance of losing your mark completely. But then, if you are the lucky type and your examiner is happy or in a good mood, he or she could just strike through the unwanted words and then give you a half. And the chance of he or she doing that is quite slim. So you must know how to answer appropriately and be sure of your scores. Now, when you know how to answer appropriately, you have your scores or you have your marks or your answers as short as the following ones. Look at the answers given here. Tagged preferred. The first one is that Africans are suffering from a curse. Let's go back to the question again and see. He would forever stick to his theory of Africans suffering from a curse inflicted on them by the Almighty God for some heinous sins committed centuries ago. And the question says, what point of view is the geography master fond of advancing? And the answer here says that Africans are suffering from a curse. Another way of putting it is to say that Africans are suffering from a curse inflicted on them by Almighty. Now, there is no need adding for some heinous sins committed centuries ago. No need for that. What point of view is the geography master fond of advancing? That Africans are suffering from a curse, or that Africans are suffering from a curse inflicted on them by the Almighty. Now, somebody may want to say the geography master is fond of advising the point that Africans, no, we don't need that. That is quite too long. Just go straight to the point. Okay, the question is already there. We know what the question is asked. So just go straight to the point and give your answer. Simple and short. Moving on. Now look at another one, also extracted from SSC June 1997. This one says, he would, in support of this theory, ask listeners, why would our mosquitoes inflict deadly malarias on us, whereas the British mosquito does not bite? Why aren't there poisonous snakes in Britain, whereas here most snakes are deadly? Why should the deadly sickle cell disease be peculiar to the black race? Okay, this is the geography master asking more questions now. Now the question here says, mention the 3 arguments he uses to support his view. 3 arguments that he has used to support his view. What are the 3 arguments? Let's look at it again. He would, in support of his theory, ask listeners, why would our mosquitoes inflict deadly malarias on us, whereas the British mosquito does not bite? Why aren't there poisonous snakes in Britain, whereas here most snakes are deadly? Why should the deadly sickle cell disease be peculiar to the black race? All the statements here are 3 good questions, and they are the arguments. Now, how do you do that? Now, another sample of a lifted answer. If you go this way, why would our mosquitoes inflict deadly malarias on us, whereas the British mosquito does not bite? Why aren't there poisonous snakes in Britain, whereas here most snakes are deadly? Why should the deadly sickle cell disease be peculiar to the black race? Now, this answer is quite too long for one question. you have just picked the whole extract and have just broken them into 3. That is what you've done here. The only smart thing that was done here was that you've broken the whole thing into 3. You can make your answer shorter. Again, this is not absolutely wrong, but you stand the chance of losing your score or having a half mark. That is, if your examiner is so kind. And how do you guarantee his kindness when he doesn't even know you? Now look at this preferred answer. That Africa's mosquito inflicts deadly malaria, whereas the British mosquito does not. 2. That there are no poisonous snakes in Britain, whereas most snakes in Africa are deadly. That sickle cell disease is peculiar to the black race. It's as simple as that. So, the next set of questions we'll be looking at are the inferential questions. For now, I'd like us to listen again carefully, study, look for examples of past questions, and then fish out some of these direct questions and see how it will help you. Thank you.